So having lost my audiences repeatedly, I'm now just going to go ahead with my biggest takeaway from the history of China this semester, which for me would be the dynastic cycle. And this is really interesting to me because it happens to everybody, like every single one it done happened. Yeah. So it's starting out with the Shang dynasty, the first confirmed dynasty. All we really know about it is the tail end of the cycle, which would be the last king of the Shang, conveniently named Zhou because reasons. Who from what the records we have access to show, all written by the Zhou, convenient. He was somewhat of a despot. That's putting it mildly, and that really looks like what happens at the end of all the dynasties. So then it rolls around to the Zhou, who take over, and we get to see the beginnings of the dynastic wheel of cycling, with King Wen taking over with the mandate of heaven, the will of the people, making life better for the peasants. Huzzah, huzzah! Everybody's happy, and then this is really what happened. This is really the signature of the beginning of the dynastic cycle. A charismatic, young general dude will overthrow the existing regime and take over the kingdom / empire / country / warring states with the intent of making life better for everyone. He or his immediate successor will bring about new regulations that are won't always directly improve the lot of the people, but definitely restructure society in such a way as to make it better. For the instance of the Western Zhou, this was the Duke who wrote all the books and Confucianized society and all that good jazz. And then we have the Zhou going around the cycle. Capital gets burnt. Well, actually the capital being burnt, that's pretty much, we've reached the tail end of the dynastic cycle again with the what's-his-face, the loser king who's wasted all the support of his generals and such, crying wolf because he wanted to impress his concubine, which is rather extremely ridiculous, not only because he's wasting his military might and the goodwill of his generals and his power and misusing his resources and all that stuff, but also he's expending all this energy trying to impress what pretty much amounts at the time to his own property. Just throwing it out there. So anyways, that's come full circle again. Despot ruling, using the country for his own gain, and it ends. In this case, he doesn't get overthrown, he gets burnt out by invading nomads, which is the alternative. That's another thing that repeats itself throughout Chinese history. The dynastic cycles end either with barbarians invading or overthrow. And that just keeps happening. Another great example of this is, to skip to the end from the beginning, is Mao, who pretty much is if we look at him as a dynasty in himself, and we divide him up into different Maos, we can see the whole cycle play out. It starts out with communist revolutionary Mao fighting in the hills of Jiangxi or some such place, it's hard to pronounce for the barbarian tongued, and he's fighting the nationalists who are at the end of. They're not a proper dynasty. Let's just skip over them. He's doing the young, charismatic, revolutionary, Long March, young, charismatic, revolutionary Mao, fighting for the good of the people. Then he takes over and has his reigning period, which, just like, this part of the cycle that isn't an end, / beginning, and rolls around to the end. Old Mao, who as his doctor put it, spend a lot of time at parties resting with young girls. Pretty, well, let's just say the Duke of Zhou would not have approved of such behaviors. Probably. And there we have the end again. Leader using the country's resources for his own ends, just filling his own pockets, satisfying his own appetites, and not ruling with the good of people in mind. So then he dies, and that's the end of his cycle. I guess no barbarians. It could be argued that the barbarian invasion theme reoccurs in this instance too, because the rightists who come back after he's dead to establish pretty much state capitalism, to Mao's eyes, those were the barbarians. They had been banished. They come back. They turn around everything he did. That's pretty much a barbarian invasion. So, the cycle repeats itself. Now, and the really interesting thing about this cycle to me is, besides the fact that it keeps happening over and over and over again, is that it happens to not just to individual dynasties, sometimes individuals, but also to China as a whole. Because another part of this cycle is the barbarians who invade, or the peasants who overthrow, end up becoming whomever they conquered / overthrew. We can look at Liu Bang, another hard to pronounce name. Because I know I'm not supposed to say Bang, because, you know, A's aren't pronounced like that, and the Pinyin A isn't pronounced. Anyways, he's super duper peasant, overthrows the Qin dynasty, establishes Taoist rule, and it goes along until, boom, Han Wu Di, who, in the middle of the dynastic cycle, has become pretty much what was overthrown. Because Han Wu Di divides up the country into commanderies, again, centralized rule, like the legalists, then pressures / extorts / relies on the peasant stuff to do his projects, aka rebuilding the Great Wall and fighting off the nomads again. And he also brings back Confucianism, another thing that glorious, charismatic founder was not a big fan of, what with the hat story and all that. So this is another part of the cycle. Invaders / overthrowers become whatever they invaded / overthrew. Happens again. Well, pretty much all the successful nomad invasions that really held on became their own dynasties. They invaded with their horses and their arrows and all their nomadic awesomeness, and then they became good Confucians, book-learning scholars with a lot. The Manchus kept their horses and their arrows, but there was a lot less raping and pillaging and burning and all that nomadic jazz, right? And so yeah, and then that brings me to the third aspect of the once again, like, expanded cycle of the dynastic cycle, expand writ large again, is it's along with it going from overthrower to ruler to overthrown. It goes from low class to high class to low class, and this can be seen in China's history, in the Chinese nation as a whole. We have warring states rolling over to unified, strong superpower. We have nation brought low by Mongol invasion rolling over to nation who right after they kick the Mongols out, is controlling a huge chunk of the world's oceans. Then, more recently, we have nation brought low through by a century of humiliation, melon all sliced up, to nation being the regional superpower, holding all the cards, taking all the money, and even fighting its own little proxy wars. Which, I mean, that's one of the signs of you're a powerful nation. You get other people to fight for reasons they really aren't that invested in someone else's country. Yeah. And so, there that is. That's my biggest takeaway from this semester of Chinese history. The dynastic cycle happens to dynasties, to individuals, to classes, to the nation. Thanks.